I was 15 the last time I stood in that house. 15 when my father pointed to the door and said, "You are no longer my son." No yelling, no trial, just a verdict. He didn't even look at me when he said it. Just stared at the wall behind me like I was already gone. The lie that killed everything came from Beth, my stepmother. She told him I'd acted inappropriately around my half-sister. Her exact words. Cold. Loaded. Enough to shut down every ounce of logic in a father's brain. He didn't ask questions. He didn't look for truth. He just acted. I remember standing on the front lawn, backpack half-zipped, watching the blinds close behind him. And that was it. My life ended there and the next one began. My name's Carter. I'm 31 now. Real estate developer based out of Denver. Most people who know me today, the guys in my firm, the brokers I deal with, the partners I signed six-figure contracts with, they have no idea I spent 3 years sleeping under bridges and church steps. No idea my first investment was a cot in a halfway shelter and a pocket knife Tom gave me to keep other people's hands out of my bag. Tom was the first person who didn't look at me like I was something to avoid. He taught me how to survive when surviving was all I had. That man could find a side gig in an empty field. I owe him more than I've ever owed anyone. It took time. Hustle. Watching everything. Learning how people moved. I never got loud. I got smart. Quiet guys get underestimated, and underestimated is where power lives. By 24, I owned my first duplex. By 27, I was flipping full apartment buildings. And now? Now I sign leases from my office downtown, 3 blocks from the courthouse where I used to watch cases just to learn how contracts really worked. I thought I buried that past. Thought it was gone. Until last Friday. The email came at 4:07 p.m. Subject line, Carter, quick favor? It was from Beth. 16 years. No contact. No apology. Not a word. And now she wanted a favor? I opened it. Read every line. Reread it twice. They wanted me to consider letting my half-sister, the one I was exiled over, move into one of my homes. Her wedding was coming up, Beth said. They needed a space. And suddenly, the kid they erased was a real estate solution. She signed it, hope all is well. Love, Mom. That word. Mom. I sat there staring at it until the office lights clicked off. No rage. No storm. Just one sharp thought cutting through the silence. You people have no idea what you just stepped into. They wanted the house on Belmont. Beth was specific, the one with the white shutters and the wraparound porch. It's perfect for the wedding transition, she wrote. Funny. That house had a name. Unit 12. My first personal build from the ground up. Took me 2 years, half a dozen contractors, and more patience than I thought I had. I poured the concrete with my own hands. Slept on the floor when drywall was going up. That house wasn't just property. It was a damn milestone. And now they wanted to hand it to her like a wedding gift. I didn't reply. I waited. 2 days later, a follow-up email came. This time from my father. Carter, I know this may come as a surprise, but we'd appreciate the chance to talk. In person. There's a lot we regret. Let us explain. Regret. I let that word sit in my inbox like it belonged there. Let it pretend it could undo 16 years of silence. Let it play dress-up insincerity. I responded with one line, I'm free Friday. 11 a.m. They picked a cafe downtown. Public. Comfortable. Safe. Beth wore pearls. Dad wore a sports coat like it was still 2004 and he thought dressing up would soften the blow. We sat. He smiled first. You look good, son. Don't call me that, I said. Beth jumped in. We didn't come to fight. We came to reconnect. There's been a lot of reflection lately. I let her finish her script. Then I asked the one question neither of them expected. Who's her biological father? Beth blinked. Dad froze. What, he said? You heard me. He tried to laugh it off. Carter, that's not what this is about. It is now. Beth's face cracked for the first time. She looked at my father, then at her napkin. You're being ridiculous, she muttered. You threw me out of my home because you believed a lie she told you. And now you want me to hand over property to celebrate the life of a daughter who was never yours to begin with. Dad went pale. Beth's voice dropped to a whisper. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. I've known for a long time. And now it's time you knew too. They didn't realize it yet, but I'd already run the DNA test. I already had the proof. And next Friday? I'd give him the envelope. Let him open it with his own hands. I had it printed on heavy stock paper. Simple. No drama. Just the cold truth in black and white. The DNA results came in 2 weeks earlier. I hadn't ordered them for fun. I'd known for years. Saw it in the way Beth handled things. Saw it in her eyes and in my sister's. Nothing matched. Not physically. Not in blood. But now I had it confirmed. Clinically. Legally. My father was not her father. And now I was going to put that truth in his hands. I arrived early to the meeting. Brought coffee, even. Let him think this was going to be civil. Beth didn't show migraine. Apparently. I didn't ask. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller. His hair had thinned. That once commanding voice now sounded like someone playing at authority instead of owning it. I appreciate you agreeing to meet, he said. I set the envelope on the table. What's this? Read it. He peeled it open like it might explode. Scanned the top page. Then again. Then a third time. When he looked up, his hands were trembling. This can't be right. It is. You had no right to do this. I stared at him, not blinking. You had no right to throw your own son into the street based on a lie. But you did that, didn't you? He sat back, eyes darting like he was trying to find a way out. There wasn't one. She told me. She lied. I cut in. And you believed her. No hesitation. No evidence. Just blind loyalty to a woman who was never loyal to you. He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, "She told me you'd touched her." "I know what she told you." He rubbed his temples like he could erase the memory. "I thought I was protecting her." I leaned forward, voice low. "You were protecting her lie, and sacrificing your son to do it." The silence was brutal. Finally, he asked, "What do you want from me?" I smiled once. Brief. Controlled. "Nothing." That shook him more than the paper. "You came here begging for my house. That house is becoming something else now. A nursery. For my child." He swallowed hard. "You're a father?" "I will be." The weight of it landed in his chest. You could see it. A man realizing just how much of his own blood he'd thrown away, only to raise a lie. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. I stood, buttoned my jacket. "Don't contact me again," I said. "This conversation is the last piece of closure I'll ever need." And then I walked away. I didn't need revenge. The truth had already done the job for me. He sent a message the next week. Short. Desperate. "Carter, please. Let me make things right. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because there was nothing left to say. When someone erases you from their life, they don't get to pencil you back in when their version of the story stops working. I spent my 16th birthday behind a grocery store, eating a vending machine sandwich. I learned to file taxes before I learned to drive. I washed dishes in 3 states before I ever saw my own name on a lease. That man? He didn't raise me. Not really. He raised his guilt, his illusion. And when I handed him the DNA test, it all shattered. That week, I heard through a mutual contact, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, that he'd taken the test again himself, sent it to a different lab. The result was the same. Beth had cheated. His daughter was a lie. And now, with one envelope, he had no son, no daughter, no truth left to stand on. He spiraled fast. The cousin called me again. "He's not doing well," she said. "He hasn't left the house." I told her I understood. I meant it. Beth, meanwhile, was in full spin mode. She called me once. I didn't answer. Then she called my office, spoke to my assistant, said she needed to discuss the house situation. That's when I had my lawyer send a formal cease and desist. Polite, professional, absolute. And just like that, the game shifted. They went from smug to silent in a matter of days. A week later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. He checked himself into a psychiatric facility. It was the cousin again. My father, the man who once threw me out like trash, was now sitting in a rehab center, trying to pick up the pieces of a life he built on a foundation that never existed. Meanwhile, I was choosing paint swatches for a nursery. My wife, Mia, was 6 months pregnant. She didn't know the full story, just the outline. She knew I had no contact with my family. She knew there was a past I didn't talk about. She never pushed. But when I told her the bare minimum, that someone had tried to take something that wasn't theirs and failed, she just nodded and placed my hand on her stomach. This, she whispered, is the only legacy that matters. She was right. The people who erased me thought they'd buried me. But I'd just been planting roots. I heard about the wedding through LinkedIn. Not exactly a family invitation. One of Beth's old friends, some woman who still posted brunch photos with #blessed, shared a picture of the bridal shower. There was my half-sister, glowing in a white dress, champagne in hand. The caption read, "Can't wait to celebrate this beautiful bride at her dream wedding next month." Dream wedding, paid for with lies, built on the ruins of the kid they tried to erase. They'd booked a private estate just outside Boulder. Expensive venue, country chic style. Her fiancé came from money, too. Some corporate finance guy who wore linen in the winter and called everything an asset. I kept scrolling, and then I saw something that made me pause. In the comments, someone mentioned how generous it was of her family to secure the house for the newlyweds. The Belmont place? Total score. So they'd told people they already had the house. My house, the same one they tried and failed to talk me out of. Now they were using it to flex, as if they still controlled the world they'd burned down. But I didn't say a word, didn't correct them, didn't reach out. I just waited. And then the call came, this time from her, the half-sister, the one who'd never defended me, never asked questions, never once reached out over the years. "Carter," she said, "I know this is a little awkward." I let the silence stretch. She continued, "We were hoping, just temporarily, we could still use the Belmont house. It's only for a few months. We'll cover expenses." Honestly, it would mean so much. I could almost hear Beth feeding her lines in the background. I didn't raise my voice, didn't make a speech, just one word. "No." A pause. "Wait. What do you mean, no?" I let out a breath. "I mean, no. You don't live there. You're not entitled to it. And after everything that's happened, the lies, the erasure, the silence, the idea that you can just ask for it now. You don't understand," she said. "We already sent out announcements. Everyone thinks we're moving in. What am I supposed to tell people?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Tell them the truth." Then I hung up. And for the first time in 16 years, I felt the balance shift. She'd grown up in the lie. Now she had to live with the cost of it. 3 days later, the fiancé called me. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. The tone was polite, rehearsed, but I could hear the tension buried underneath. "Hey Carter, it's Ryan. Just wanted to clear the air. I think there's been a misunderstanding about the Belmont property. Maybe we can work something out that benefits everyone. I'm open to negotiations." Negotiations. As if he was dealing with a business acquisition, not a broken bloodline. I didn't respond, because I already knew what he didn't. He was about to walk into a wedding tied to a family that had kept more secrets than he had spreadsheets. And the fuse was already lit. See, when I ran that DNA test, I didn't stop there. I'd hired a private investigator months ago, quietly, discreetly, just to understand what I was really dealing with. Not for revenge, for clarity. He dug through property records, social accounts, phone logs, found out Beth had taken a second mortgage in my father's name 4 years ago. Forged signature, same handwriting she used on birthday cards. Found bank transfers from an account listed under a maiden alias. And best of all, he found the name of her old boyfriend, the real father, lived 2 towns over, small-time contractor, bit of a drinker. No clue he had a daughter walking around with someone else's last name. I filed all of it away, just in case. Then, last week, I mailed 1 copy of the DNA results and a short, clean letter to Ryan's office. Thought you deserved to know who you're marrying. See, no drama, no signature, just facts. I expected him to ignore it, but he didn't. 2 nights later, I got a message from a burner number. "You were right. I called off the engagement. Thank you." That was it. No follow-up, no questions. Just a man quietly removing himself from a train he didn't want to be on. The wedding was canceled the next morning. Beth tried to spin it as a change of plans on social media. The venue didn't confirm. Neither did the vendors, one of whom I know personally. She texted me, They lost the deposit. Full amount. Bride didn't even show to the walkthrough. That was the final blow. The perfect, curated life, crumbling. All because of one truth they never thought would see daylight. And I wasn't done yet. Because while they were busy putting out fires, I was breaking ground on something else. A nursery. In the very room they tried to take from me. It was the smallest room in the Belmont house. Second floor, corner facing east. Used to be an office. I'd planned to turn it into a guest suite. But after everything, it felt right to make it something more permanent. Mia stood beside me as I measured the walls, marking soft pencil lines where the crib would go. "Is this the room?" she asked. I nodded once. She didn't press. That's what I loved about her. She never asked me to explain scars I hadn't offered. Instead, she pointed to the window. "Morning light's good in here." I smiled. "It'll do." The room they tried to claim for a wedding gift now held the future they'd never touch. No banners. No parties. Just quiet intention. Every paint stroke, every fixture I installed, it was a reclaiming. A statement written in screws and lumber. I wasn't erasing them. I was replacing them. A week after the wedding fell apart, the voicemails started again. Beth first, then my father. Both cycling through the stages, denial, guilt, then back to denial again. "You've made your point," Beth said on one message. "But she's still your sister." No, I thought. She never was. Not in name. Not in blood. And definitely not in loyalty. Then came the most surreal message of them all. My father, voice ragged and low. "I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know." I believed her because I was weak. I see that now. I played that message twice. Then deleted it. Apologies don't fix what you left behind in a parking lot at 15 years old. They don't erase the years I slept with one hand on a blade and the other under my head. And they don't buy you entry into the life I built without you. 2 days later, I changed the locks on Belmont not because I thought they'd come back, but because I'd learned something over the years. Closure isn't something you find. It's something you install. They couldn't touch me legally. But that didn't stop them from trying socially. Beth still had connections, book clubs, fundraisers, those polished circles that thrive on illusion. So she did what manipulators do best. She rewrote the narrative. Suddenly I was the estranged son who'd always been difficult. The one who twisted the truth to ruin his sister's happiness. A man poisoned by greed and bitterness. I didn't respond. Didn't post online. Didn't correct the whispers. Because I knew something they didn't. Truth doesn't need a press release. It just needs time. And time was working in my favor. A former neighbor forwarded me a post from a local Facebook group. "Does anyone know what happened with the Belmont wedding? They canceled last minute. My daughter was supposed to be a bridesmaid." Comments flooded in. Speculation. Confusion. Then one reply stood out. A friend of the groom said there was a DNA scandal. Apparently the bride's mother lied about who the real father was. Beth's story was unraveling. Fast. That's the thing about truth. Once it escapes, it doesn't crawl. It runs. The fallout picked up speed. The contractor, the real father, had a meltdown once the PI's letter reached him. Claimed he was owed child support. Threatened to sue. Embarrassed himself enough on a courthouse lawn that someone filmed it. The video hit local news. I didn't watch it. Didn't need to. Because I was already standing in the Belmont nursery, paint under my fingernails, listening to Mia hum while she built the bookshelf. Meanwhile, the house they tried to use for prestige, the one they once considered a stepping stone, was quietly becoming a home. I installed the final light fixture that night. Stood back. Looked at the room. And in that moment, I realized something that made everything fall into place. I didn't win. I outlived them. Their version of the story. Their lies. Their control. All of it. Gone. I wasn't expecting the knock. Late afternoon. Sun still out. Nursery curtains still drying on the line. When I opened the door, he was standing there. My father. Thinner. Face hollowed out. No coat. Just a button-down that looked like it hadn't seen an iron in weeks. I didn't say anything. He didn't expect me to. "I just wanted to see you," he said. Just once. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. We stood on the porch, the same one they tried to take, in silence. He looked at the flower bed I'd planted. The railing I'd sanded myself. The world he'd never been invited to be part of. "She's gone," he said finally. "Beth?" He nodded. Packed a bag. Left a note. Said she was going to Florida to clear her head. I didn't respond. He rubbed his hands like they were cold. I took the test again. Different lab. Just to be sure. I know, I said. Everything I built, it wasn't mine. No, I said. But you destroyed what was yours. For her. He nodded slowly, then pulled something from his pocket. A photo. Old. Torn edges. Me at 11, holding a baseball glove, smiling like I still believed the world was fair. I've carried this, he said, even when I didn't deserve to. You never deserved to. Silence again. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I'm asking for a moment. So I gave him 1 minute, of nothing. No words, no warmth, just air between us. Then I turned the handle behind me. He understood. Didn't fight it. Didn't beg. Just nodded once, turned, and walked back down the steps. The picture? He left it on the porch rail. I picked it up, looked at the face I barely remembered, then slid it into the trash can as I went inside. Some ghosts don't need closure. They need to stay dead. A week later, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from her, my half-sister. Inside, for pages of slanted, shaky apologies. She wrote about how she was shocked to find out the truth, claimed she never knew, claimed she looked up to me growing up, said she was just a kid caught in the middle. She wasn't a kid anymore, and she wasn't caught in the middle. She benefited from the lie, lived a whole life funded by it, praised for it, protected by it, and now that it cost her everything, she wanted to distance herself from the wreckage. The final line read, I never meant to take anything from you. I almost laughed. She took everything. And not because she reached out with malice, but because she never once reached back. Never questioned the lie. Never challenged Beth. Never asked why her brother vanished one day like a stain scrubbed out of the family photo. I folded the letter and set it in the drawer with the others. No response. I wasn't going to be her redemption arc. Not now. Not ever. A few days later, I got word. She'd moved back in with her mother, who'd resurfaced in a rundown condo in Daytona Beach. Her social media was gone. The ring? Returned. The family name she used to flaunt? Stripped. Turns out Ryan's family ran their own DNA check. Quietly, thoroughly, not just on her, on Beth. And the results painted a timeline that didn't line up with anything they'd been told. That's when the walls collapsed. Weddings canceled. Inheritance frozen. Business ties cut. Reputation gone. And still, I didn't do a thing. No lawsuits. No announcements. No gloating. I just kept working on the nursery, piece by piece, shelf by shelf, future replacing the past. Mia asked if I wanted to do a middle name to honor someone. I said no. No legacy deserved that. Not from them. Not anymore. The irony didn't hit me until I stood at the county recorder's office, signing paperwork for a second property development deal. They handed me the updated title sheet for Belmont, and there it was, printed in clean serif font. Carter A. Hawthorne owner. Sole. No joint owners. No liens. No co-signers. Just me. The kid who'd once been kicked out of a rented home with a plastic duffel bag and $28 in quarters. Now I owned 3 buildings across the city and was finalizing paperwork for a 4th. That's when it hit me. They tried to erase my name. Now it was engraved in deeds. Permanent. Legal. Untouchable. I left the office without a word. No need to celebrate. Just folded the paper and tucked it into my case. By then, word had spread in their circle. Turns out, when you build your entire reputation on appearances, truth becomes a fire that eats through everything. Fast. Beth's boutique closed down. Clients pulled out quietly. Rumors said she was asking friends for help. But favors dry up quick when your lies are public record. My father? He sold his car. Downsized. Rumor was he took a plea deal. Something about forged documents and tax discrepancies tied to Beth's second mortgage stunt. A few months in county, then probation. His lawyer blamed stress. I didn't attend the hearing. I had drywall being installed in a 3-unit conversion project that day. Priorities. Mia kept asking if I was okay, if I needed to talk it through. But what do you say about a house of lies that finally collapses? Nothing. You step over the debris and keep walking. One afternoon, I stood at the edge of the Belmont driveway, watching as a landscaper finished the last of the hedges. Mia stood beside me, hand resting over her stomach. "This used to be theirs," I said quietly. "At least they thought so." She didn't reply, didn't need to, because she knew this wasn't their story anymore. It was ours. 2 months passed. No calls. No more letters. Just silence, the kind that feels earned. The kind that used to feel like exile, but now felt like freedom. The nursery was finished. Warm cream walls. Soft lighting. No clutter. Just purpose. Every screw I drilled, every baseboard I installed was a quiet refusal. A refusal to let them infect this part of my life. This new beginning. One night, Mia and I sat on the floor, folding baby clothes. She held up a tiny Seahawks onesie, a joke gift from a friend who didn't know much about football but knew I used to wear the sweatshirt everywhere. It made me freeze for a second, just long enough for her to notice. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, that sweatshirt had been stolen once, worn by another man in the kitchen I built." A moment burned into my memory, but now it was just cotton. Just a joke. Just something my kid might spit up on. That's what healing looks like sometimes, turning symbols into scraps. I spent the rest of that night updating files. Trust documents. Asset plans. Ownership structures. Every property I owned, every one I would own, was going into a family trust. Mia and the baby were listed as sole beneficiaries. And under contingency exclusions, I listed 3 names. Just initials. Never again. They had their chance. They used it to write me out of their story. So I wrote them out of mine. Legally. Permanently. The next morning, I mailed the documents to my attorney. Stamped. Filed. Enforced. And just like that, they were officially locked out of everything I'd built. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it out of clarity. Because some bridges don't need to burn. They just need to be disassembled. Brick by brick. Until there's nothing left to walk back on. They thought I was gone. Years ago, when I disappeared from that house, they closed the chapter with their version of the story. Beth told anyone who asked that I'd run off. That I had issues. I know because one of her old friends, a realtor I crossed paths with at a zoning board meeting, brought it up over coffee. She always said you were troubled. Said your father did what he had to do. I just nodded and let her keep talking. That's the thing about liars, they're loud when they think you're too far away to respond. But now? Now they can't speak my name without tripping over the truth. The same people who once smiled at Beth's charity events now whisper when she walks into a room. The same old neighbors who waved at her Range Rover now side-eye her Corolla in the condo parking lot. And my father? He's not even listed in the HOA records anymore. Had to sell the family home. That address, the one they forced me to leave, is now owned by a newlywed couple from Seattle. Sometimes I wonder if the back bedroom still smells like the carpet cleaner I used when I was 12. Probably not. But the past has a way of lingering. Meanwhile, I keep building. My company closed on a 12-unit development last month. A banker I once begged for a loan now greets me with 2 lattes and a contract pre-approved. No billboards. No bragging. Just execution. Mia asked if I wanted to do a baby shower. I told her no. I don't do performative milestones. We'll celebrate in our own way, quiet, honest, complete. But I did have one request. I took the ultrasound photo, printed it in black and white, and had it framed. Then I placed it on the mantel in the Belmont house, right above the original deed. That's what I want my child to see one day, not where they came from, but what they came through. Not survival. Construction. Not revenge. Structure. That's the legacy. And they're the foundation. It came in the form of a handwritten card. No postage. No return address. Just a folded envelope slipped under the front door one Thursday evening. I recognized the script immediately. Beth. Inside was a short note. 6 sentences. Carefully worded. No apology. Just implications. Hints. The same manipulative tone she'd always used, soft enough to sound caring, sharp enough to slip a blade under your ribs. Carter. We may not have seen eye to eye, but I still believe family matters. No one benefits from holding on to bitterness. I heard about your child. Congratulations. I hope you'll reconsider our place in their life. Beth. No signature. No love. Just her trying one last time to slither her way into something that didn't belong to her. I stood there reading it in the doorway. Mia came over. That from her. I handed it to her. Watched her read. Watched her jaw tighten. What are you going to do? She asked. I took the card, walked to the kitchen, and fed it through the shredder. No words. No drama. just the soft mechanical sound of history being made irrelevant. They tried to destroy me by cutting me off. Then they tried to return like nothing ever happened the moment they realized I was the only one still standing. But that door? It's closed now. Permanently. Not locked. Not barricaded. Just gone. Walled over with the truth. Mia wrapped her arms around me. You sure? She asked. I nodded. They erased me. Now I've returned the favor. Outside, the wind picked up. I looked out across the yard, our yard, and watched as the last bit of light disappeared behind the Belmont roofline. Nothing to reclaim. Nothing to fix. Only forward now. The nursery smelled like fresh pine and linen. It was quiet. Peaceful. One of those still moments that don't announce themselves, they just land and stay. Mia was asleep in the other room, curled on her side, one hand resting over her stomach. I sat in the rocking chair, lights dimmed, holding a small folded onesie that said, home built, not bought. Fitting. Because that's exactly what this life was. Built, not inherited. Earned, not gifted. I'd been erased once. Painted as a stain on their perfect story. And I never screamed. Never showed up with a camera crew. I didn't post. Didn't beg. Didn't try to explain the truth to people committed to the lie. I just built. Day by day. Contract by contract. One deal at a time. And the final revenge? Was that I didn't take revenge at all. I didn't burn bridges. I bought the land beneath them. I didn't confront them in public. I filed paperwork in silence. I didn't fight for their approval. I gave them my absence. The Belmont house, the one they tried to take, is now fully renovated. Every room designed with purpose. No ghosts in the hallways. No history in the closets. Just space. For family. Real family. The kind built on truth, not blood. The day my son was born, I held him in my arms and whispered the one thing I never heard as a child. You're safe. You belong. He'll never know what it feels like to be cast out. To be questioned. To be lied about behind closed doors by the very people meant to protect you. Because I've made sure of it. They didn't notice when I disappeared. They only noticed when I didn't come back. By then, it was far too late.